talking to myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Friday night, which means it's Three Amigos live this week. And great to see everybody in the chat nice and early. And as always, we'll be looking back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And let's start, I guess, with a big positive, Steve Hasty. And that was the unveiling, finally, of Eddie Howe and the subsequent PR and press conference. I think really cheered the fan base up. If they needed any more cheering after the takeover, this really almost, rubber stamped, the future, hopefully, for the next, 2.5, 3 years.
Yes, and hopefully more, Steve. Not just the 2.5 years, but that the contract that's been signed. It's great news for the club. I mean, when we were on the show last weekend, I think the rumours were flying, and it was looking pretty obvious it was going to happen. But I think with the timing and with the game coming up, we did say that we thought that it would be later on at the weekend, if not on the Monday, and that was proved right. That the official announcement came. Eddie straight into the training ground, straight to meet the players, straight to get out there and start the bleep tests and all of the other little things that managers want to do when they take over a club. They want to see how fit the players are. They want to meet the players and also want to check their fitness. Naturally, I'm sure Mitch has got something to say about that. And then obviously that carried on through Tuesday, and by Wednesday, an absolutely brilliant press conference. And then he goes out on the beer. Fantastic. He is a proper Geordie already. He's out on Gossie High Street, isn't he? Apparently, according to the Daily Telegraph, he's taking his coach and staff out for a bonding session. But joking aside, it's all really, really positive news. It's just the injection that the club needed after the previous couple of weeks. We've had the euphoria of the takeover, which, quite frankly, hasn't settled yet, has it? I think it's still very much in everybody's consciousness, and everybody's still on a high about that. But then to get the managerial situation sorted out is another weight, I suppose, off the shoulders of the new owners, and a great relief for the fans, because there was a lot of panic going around on social media, and a lot of people screaming that they should be doing it quicker and faster, and all the names that were being bandied around, and the press were having an absolute field day playing guessing games. So it was just great to actually see Eddie Howe's name officially announced. And I was going to say stuck up on the door. I suppose at some point somebody did stick his name up on the door in the training ground. Let's hope they didn't hammer the door too hard and the door didn't fall in, because apparently the training ground's fallen to bits for according to a lot of our media people as well. So no, absolutely fantastic news, Steve. Let's see what happens in the next week. I think what's going to happen, from my point of view, is people are going to now start talking about formations and the style of football, but for now, I'm just sort of really, really excited and really pleased that we've got Eddie Howe in.
Neil, how's it gone down in your part of the world?
It comes across as a very impressive individual. I think that press conference has really raised his stock over here as well. I think it's quite clear from talking to the lads at Arab News that they've been very impressed with the way he's come in, the way he's handled himself, the way he's answered the questions, the way he's deflected some of the questions. Because I think we're seeing this sort of railing against Newcastle United in every way, shape, form they can from certain parts of the media, and to the point where now it's quite laughable. And I think Eddie Howe come in, he's hit the ground running, handled himself superbly in every single way possible. And I don't think anybody can deny that he hasn't come across as that. And it was interesting to see that done, and now that's done, they can also look at other structure around the manager and or head coach, as I suspect they're going to start calling them. That structure that we need put in place around the head coach, things like director of football, things like which way are we going to go in terms of off the field. And this is a wonderful 2-week period to get stuff like that done, which is great. Also, now he's got a good length of time with a lot of the players. We're not many away on international duty. Very interesting little tidbit from inside the club, doing all the fitness tests that he's been doing. There's a suggestion that the players are only at 60% of fitness of where he expected them to be at this point in the season, which I don't think would be any surprise to any of us if that is actually the case. Look, for example, at the stats. We've conceded over half the goals we've conceded in the last half hour of games. That suggests an unfit team to me. If what we're being told is that they were effectively being given every other day off, and it was a little bit easy, it certainly sounds like the first 2 days with Eddie Howe hasn't been easy. There's tales of people throwing their guts up at the side of pitches after runs and things like that. He's such a simple thing to do. It was great to see him do things like bleep tests. You want to get the most accurate analysis of where your players are at a certain point of time. It's the simple basic fitness tests that you get those answers from. And as Steve says, right now the talk's going to be, right, how am I going to use these players? What kind of formation am I going to play? What kind of rules am I'd like to see the end of the square pegs hammered into the round holes. And see some sense and structure to the way we're going. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I think we should just be happy that we've got somebody appointed who's hit the ground running, came across as a very good man in every way, shape and form that you can, and we're now in a position to move forward.
Yeah. I was very impressed with Eddie Howe's press conference. I love the fact that he said when he was asked the question about moving here, that already house hunting and going to move up here after Christmas, lock, stock, and two smoking barrels, because he didn't want to be a part-time parent and a part-time husband, and he didn't want to be a part-time football manager. And I thought that was fantastic. Great commitment and just the kind of thing you want to hear. And you can see why Amanda, Dad, and whoever else has had to sit and listen to him on a Zoom call was impressed by him. And if his football plan is half as impressive as the stuff that he gave to the media the other day, then we've got potentially another Kevin Keegan on our hands. Somebody who though, with a difference that Kevin had was that he hadn't had any experience at all, Steve. Eddie Howe's got the experience of Bournemouth behind him, and he'll have learned. And I loved hearing him say as well, I've gone away and I've made myself a better manager. And I think that's fantastic. And he's got Amanda, Dad, the Rubens and PIF might have a point to prove as a football club owner, but he's got a point to prove as a head coach, because his reputation's been attacked because of the relegation. Yeah, we remember, you should remember what he did to get Bournemouth where they were and keep them where they were. So ultimately, I think everything that he's said and done so far is brilliant, and it bodes well. I think he just has to get a reaction from this set of players up until January, before the purse strings are opened and he gets a chance to spend a few quid.
Yeah, definitely, Steve. I think it's a sign of an intelligent football coach when he loses his job and has a period of sort of doing nothing, as people would normally suggest in the media, when in reality he's gone out and he's studied where he felt things went wrong for him, things that he could have done better, but he's also gone out and spoken and met and continued that discussion with people involved in the game. Top class coaches. He's gone to Europe. He's studied coaching methods abroad. So he hasn't sat on his hands. And I think what came over in the press conference is this is a guy, especially when you hear him in work at 7:15 in the morning and he's still there at 6:30 at night, 7:15. You think this is a guy who eats, sleeps and drinks football. And we've come across those people in the past. We had a manager like that only a couple of years ago who we know ate, slept and drank football, studied the game, watches games continuously, spends time with his coaching staff and absorbs and takes everything in that they're saying. That's a sign of intelligence. You're learning, not just learning on the job, but you're learning from other people's experiences as well. And you're absolutely right, Steve. That's what's impressed Amanda and Dad and the rest of the consortium members, who we know, as she said in our press conference, and we had shouted about it for a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months, that Eddie Howe had been up before Mike Ashley left the football club. So they had spoken to him. She said in our press conference that they had met, they had spoken, they'd interviewed him, they liked what they heard. So they had plans. Plans were afoot. So people who think that, you know, he's fourth, fifth, sixth choice, as some of the Southern press have tried to throw at us, along with many other allegations over the last couple of weeks about the way that the football club was being just basically, according to them, thrown together since the takeover, and it's all a mess. Completely the opposite. There's a plan. There's a functioning plan and a structure being put into place. And Eddie Howe is one of those cogs, and there will be other cogs that are going to come along. And you're right about the Keegan. I think a lot of people, when they saw him at the press conference, you got that air. There was a sort of a confidence in the room that then brings, you know, draws you in, and you become confident in them, because they are exuding that confidence in themselves. And that's a big attribute. And I think it's also quite interesting. I mean, we'll probably cover it later on with that Martin Samuel little article that was in one of the Nationals this morning. Eddie Howe's been a manager since 2009. You know, when he first started at Bournemouth. Prior to that, he'd been a coach at Bournemouth. He'd done a little bit of sort of slotting in when managers were sacked in the past. He came back. He started in full time as a manager. He was only 29 when his football career ended, if not slightly younger. But he's been there since 2009, and he had that little gap in 2011, 2012 at Burnley, but then he went back to Bournemouth until 2020. So that's a long time. And apparently he's not as good as Steven Gerrard, who's been in management for 3 years and has won a trophy that, quite frankly, you or I or Mitch, even from the distance of Dubai, could have probably won for Glasgow Rangers last season, the state that Celtic were in after 9 in a row. Steven Gerrard will be idolised in Glasgow to a certain extent because he managed to reach that 10 out of 10. He stopped the 10 out of 10 happening. But that mythology that the typical English press will try and throw on because he's got 114 caps and he's won a league championship. Eddie Howe, as I say, an established manager, been doing the job since 29, constantly learning, constantly evolving. And what he actually did at Bournemouth should not be forgotten. You know, taking a team from the, you know, literally, I think there was something like 17 points adrift at one point. They were destined for leaving the league in Division 2, and he brought them up, and he got them into the Premier League, and then he kept them in the Premier League for a long period of time, like 3, 4, 5 years, something like that. So this is all great for Newcastle. It's great for us. And if we can get that sort of stability, if Howe can build in these first 2 years, and then we have that stability off the pitch and on the pitch, and that's where people like ourselves as supporters need to be patient as well. You can see some sort of a dynasty starting to build. And if he's put those building blocks in, that's fantastic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Mitch, it was just refreshing, wasn't it, to hear the positivity coming from a manager's mouth after having to listen to Steve Bruce for a couple of years.
And yet people are still desperate to bring negativity into it. Steve took the words out of my mouth talking about Martin Samuel there. That's the first article I've ever read where we've been panned for not taking a manager that we never wanted anyway, and we never interviewed.
What was the gist of the article? Because I missed it. I'm sure there'll be some people in the chat who missed it. So what was the gist of it?
Basically, that we've missed the trick by not appointing Gerrard. We should have appointed Gerrard, and we've missed the trick because we're a shambles. That's it in a nutshell, basically. I mean, shambles. The only person who has ever been offered a contract by the new owners in Newcastle United is Eddie Howe. All the stuff with Unai Emery, that all came from his people. And I know there's people in the club really, really, really pissed off at Emery's people for doing that, because he got him a canny little pay rise and secured his job for a little bit longer at Villarreal. You know, and the only person that's ever been offered a contract was Eddie Howe. The only person that people were interested to bring to the club, and the majority of the people who interviewed and spoke to various candidates Eddie Howe came head and shoulders above.
Yeah.
So, we've appointed, the football club gets panned for following a good, decent process and interviewing all possible candidates that they were interested in and appointing the person that they felt came across the best in interview.
Exactly.
It's a non-story. But because it's Steven Gerrard, of course, he's given a free pass for many things. Let's see what happens at Villa with Gerrard. And let's see how nicely the press behave if things go south. Because I'm quite sure it's a much, much, much bigger task than what he took on at Rangers. With due respect to Rangers, that division, it's two teams, and it has been two teams for a long, long time. And so I think what he's taken on is very interesting. And Villa's another club, you question what they're going to have financially to deal with because of various FFP and other post-COVID restrictions on where that money's coming from and who's investing in the club. And like many other clubs around Europe at the minute, I saw people talking about Inter again in the chat there before. PIF are not going to invest in Inter in any way, shape or form. It's not a value proposition. They don't want a part ownership. Sunning, who are Chinese and they want out, they don't want to sell part of it, they want to sell all of it. And Sunning, along with Tottenham Hotspur, were Hotspur's owners, were the two owners who hoard themselves at PIF after it looked like our deal wasn't going to go through. And I mean hoard themselves at PIF because they thought they had a big bucket of money to spend. But they're spending sensibly, and we come out time and time again, and Amanda Staveley said this in their interview recently, which is another great interview, by the way, that PIF run the numbers, and they look at the value proposition. And we've been the best value proposition in top-flight football for probably about 4 or 5 years. And the reason for that is because Mike Ashley hasn't spent a bloody dime. And the value in FFP that's going to let us really dust the coffers off in January if we want to. And so, it's a very, very interesting time at the minute with all these managers suddenly going. There's a managerial merry-go-round going on because people want to stay in the Premier League, and people are frightened because that's the only place you're going to get any money at the minute.
Yeah,
I genuinely cannot remember. Sorry, Steve, I cannot remember a period where there's been as many sackings and people just swapping jobs. I mean, like it is mental, like, and it looks, Lampard now not going to Norwich, and that potentially looks like Dean Smith could land on his feet and end up getting a position down at Norwich. He seems to be in the box seat, but madness, Steve, isn't it? Madness. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, or whenever it happened, 10 days ago, Nuno being sacked at Spurs was the catalyst for this to happen, because it looks as if everyone's just suddenly gone, oh, well, it is all right to sack somebody after 8 or 10 games.
I think the catalyst came a week earlier. I think the catalyst came when we got taken over. That was what kicked it off. The panic in the Premier League, the panic from the owners in the Premier League, who suddenly thought, hang on a minute, we need to do something here. And then you've seen them, they're all dropping like a pack of cards. You lose 5 games, you lose your job. That's panicking. That's Villa panicking. That was Villa thinking, crikey, if Newcastle start to rise, we could get dragged into something that we don't want to be part of. We're going to have to change something. We've lost 5 games. If this guy loses 6 or 7, they could catch up. That's the sort of panic that's suddenly.
And it's proper panic.
Absolute, total panic. They didn't need to get rid of Nuno. They didn't need to get rid of Smith. Farker, he was going down anyway. They didn't need to get rid of him because he would have brought them back up next season, because that's part of that business plan. And so it goes on. And what you said, Mitch, I mean, one of the little snippets that I picked up was Newcastle actually had 4 people in line for this job, in mind for this job. And they went through a systematic process of contacting and interviewing in various forms, all 4 of them. And each one of them was told that there were another 3 candidates that they were looking at. And that's honesty. That's those people who have put themselves forward or been put forward by their agents. They're informed. Now, if they don't like it, that's the point where the agent goes, oh, hang on a minute, we thought you were offering the job and the walk. Or alternatively, they take a step back and they wait for the decision to be made. And you're absolutely 100% from the information I got and received was that Eddie Howe was the most impressive. He was the man, and we've read it, we've seen it in articles subsequently, that he was the man that showed that he had more than a plan, more than an idea. He looked at he studied and looked at the whole system at the football club, what need changing, what he could do, what he could bring to make that happen. The others might have asked for, well, how much money am I going to get? Who can I buy? Why am I only going to get that? I'll need more than that in the first couple of months and first couple of years. And I want an extended contract, and X, Y, and Z's got to come in, and I don't want him, and so on and so forth. And we'll have already, and have probably more than likely even told you which targets the club should be going for. You know, if you get me, I'll bring him, and I'll bring him, and I'll bring him. And on a playing sense, not on a coaching sense. And Eddie Howe's come in very, very professionally. They've been impressed with what they've listened to and what they've heard, and they've made their decision accordingly based on what they've got in front of them. And that's refreshing. Maybe that's not the way that football is normally being done. It's certainly not the way it's been done at Newcastle United. And it's not the way that we're led to believe happens at many, many other clubs. But, the mold's been broken now. This is an organisation who's come in for the long term, there for the long haul, has the money behind them, but wants to do it right, wants to get it right. And they're not going to waste money. They're not, money's precious. Whether you're a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, or you've got a fiver, money is precious. And in the football sense, with everything that can occur, there could be another COVID lockdown. There could be all sorts happening within football over the next few years. So you don't, and exactly the same. We don't know what the outcome in the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks is going to be on what we can spend money on. What restrictions are they trying to put in place? What legal cases might have to fight there? So all of that is in the back of their mind, and they're making sure that they're getting the right man that they feel can be there for at least 2.5 years, the length of the contract, and move that football club forward on their behalf while they concentrate on the business side. That's the impressive bit. The next one will be the director of football or a sporting director, and that'll be someone that they know will knit in with Eddie Howe.
Let's move on to that, Steve. You've segued nicely into the next topic, which a lot of people are asking about on the chat. Mr. Midnight says, thought I'd get one in early. Have you heard of anything on the potential director of football? Anything in the Emanalo talk? Personally want to see Ralph Ragnick, but that's gone quiet. Marwood Campos mentioned also. Lee Carr also says the same. Are we any closer to appoint the director of football?
Mitch, do you want to take it first? Because I've just rabbited on for 5 minutes.
No, sorry, yeah.
You never rabbit, Steve. You never rabbit.
Look, that's what I was saying before. When I was saying about now we've got this period now where you leave Eddie Howe to deal with the team, and we can start talking about structure and building on the skeleton that's been left behind, which is an invertebrate skeleton. We need to really, put a backbone and a spine into the whole club. Yes, I believe we're very close to signing a director of football. I'm yet to have it confirmed, but I believe Milano's in the region as we speak. Yeah. Again, using the cover of this period where the focus is away from St James's Park would be a wonderful time to bring in the people that you want sort of under a little bit of cover. You could have VIPs dancing around inside St James's Park this week if they wanted to. And people wouldn't necessarily pick up on it. And it's a great time to do that. And I know, again, like you're pointing Eddie Howe, there's been 2 or 3 names banded around. There's been 2 or 3 people contacted, approached and spoken to. There was a word in the region that Emanalo was in Riyadh not so long ago, and you have to wonder why he suddenly turned up there, because where do when new owners do a lot of business from? Though it is easy to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 86. But I think we're very much... my feeling and belief is we are very close to having that in place. And if it is Emanalo, that's a hell of a signing. It's not a name that necessarily everybody would know straight away. But it doesn't take much to look it up to see what his history and pedigree is. And certainly within the game, he's super well respected in terms of the talent that he can unearth and bring through. but also I think he's somebody that Eddie Howe could dovetail into very well, and that bodes well for January. That we're hopefully going to enter for the first time in whenever I can think of a transfer window in January with a plan and prepared, and that'll be refreshing too. But I do believe we're close, and my personal feeling is it is Eminalo.
Steve, what would you make about that then? You're on mute, mate. You're on mute.
Yes, don't know what happened there. I'm exactly the same feeling. I'm getting the same buzz. I'm getting the same sort of information that's crossing my path. That he's been interviewed in 2 different locations. That he's possibly in the region at the moment. And Mitch is absolutely right about his pedigree. There's no question that he would be a perfect fit. I think that what we're seeing in the first week is we're seeing Eddie Howe, as we mentioned earlier, looking at players, looking at fitness, looking at what he wants from that squad and what he thinks he's going to get from that squad. And when the director of football or sporting director comes in, his role is going to be to say, sit with Eddie and go, so you think there's a gap there and you think there's a gap there, I'll go out and find them. That leaves the manager on his own to actually get on the training pitch and start to adapt the style of football that he wants. But they'll obviously, those 2 people then talk to each other, and we know that the type of player he's getting in is going to be the type of player that Eddie Howe's looking for. So it's not going to be a problem. But Emiliano's his pedigree is absolutely top class. What he did at Chelsea, the players that he found at Chelsea, the way that he put that youth structure in place with the academy, the benefits that Chelsea have had over a long period of time now that came to fruition or started to come to fruition about 4 or 5 years ago, where now their academy, I think what got Chelsea out of a hole over the last 18 months financially, with as far as financial fair play was the number of players that they were selling on for like 20 and 30 and 40 million pound that came from their academy. Lots of 20 millions, lots of 40 millions. It's absolutely amazing when you look at it, you know.
At one point, we were making something like 40 million a year on loan fees alone.
That's right.
You know, which is just crazy. What he put in place was basically a player farm.
Exactly.
And they were loaning. I think they didn't at one point have something like 23 players out on loan around the world.
Yeah, you would never see Scholler if we had that many out on loan, would you?
Yeah. Loan arranger.
You're absolutely right. And this is the sort of thing. This is something new. This is something that we're going to have to get used to as a football club, and it's all positive. And it sends a statement out to the rest of football as well when you bring a director of football in with that sort of pedigree. You know, he was at Monaco. Before that, he was at Chelsea. As you said, Mitch, well respected in the game, well respected at the top echelons of the game, well respected within UEFA, well respected within FIFA. All positive stuff. Absolutely positive. This isn't a Joe Kinnear coming in. You know, this is somebody really, really special. And if it comes off as we hope that it does, and all the feelings that we've got is that this is gonna happen. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I tell you what, if it's not him, then that means it's somebody better than him. And that again, you know, that's the way that you have to look at it. You're not, if the decision's made that it's not him, it's because they've found someone better. You know.
And he knows Eddie Howe as well, doesn't he? He's got a relationship with Eddie Howe.
Yeah, well, I think everybody knows Eddie Howe because of the fact that it's not that long ago that we're talking about Eddie Howe for an England job, you know. And I think that people, sporting directors and directors of football like that, they start to respect other coaches, young coaches, when they've seen them to develop. And I think that again is a massive plus point for that particular person. You know, when they know a lot, just as much, if not more, about coaches in the game as they do about footballers. Whether it's from academy level right the way up to your top pros. And as I say, you're talking about a bloke who brought De Bruyne. We're talking about a bloke that brought Salah, just to name but two of what are now probably the two best footballers in the world. Certainly De Bruyne last season, But Salah this season, I mean, De Bruyne's having a bit of a struggle, but I think that injury that he got just before the start of the Euros really knocked him back. And I don't think that he's recovered yet, but still a top-class footballer, an absolutely top-class footballer that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 or 4 seasons. And Salah, well, dear me, that man's by everybody's imagination is probably on form the best footballer in the world at the moment. And this guy found them. This guy brought them to Chelsea as youngsters. That just the idea that you could have somebody like that associated with Newcastle United who could identify and bring that sort of talent absolutely fascinates me, Steve.
Mind blowing, really, isn't it, Mitch? That we could end up with those kind of players coming to the club in some way, shape, or form, or younger players that will, develop into that.
Yeah. And he's got contacts around the world that lets him tap into some markets that other people can't get the best of. His pedigree he's able to find some of the genuine rough diamonds out there. And okay, both Salah and De Bruyne moved on from Chelsea for one reason or another, and have become better players since they've moved on, in my opinion. But to have the ability to have that kind of talent walking through the door with the potential to develop them into something even bigger is mind-blowing, really. And we're not just going to be, with the right people in place, we don't just become the club with the biggest financial clout in the world. We'll become, in time, and it's not going to happen overnight, but you become in time the club that everybody wants to go and be around. Chelsea, on the back of what he did, was an academy that people from around the world wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And you start to become a magnet, like attracts like. And you start to be a magnet for the people and the scouts that are working in South America, in Africa, in Asia, in the MENA region. Start to direct that talent towards that beacon, because that's where they want that talent to go to. Yes, because they're going to make a pretty penny out of it as well. That's the amount of money that goes out of the game, unfortunately, and people like that. But at the same time, for the club, it's a benefit because you have access to the best players, best potential players in the world. And that's crazy to think about it in that respect. And that's why after the director of football, we then need him to be involved with what's happening at the academy, what's happening with the under-23s, what's happening with the whole structure below that, because then we need an ethos to run through the club. This is the DNA of Newcastle United. This is how we are going to be from the under-9s all the way up to the first team, if you will. And I want you playing this way, and these are our values, and this is where we'll go from here. And I know I'm probably talking more sporting director than director of football here. I don't know how they want to actually really work it, but that's the way I would be running it. And that's also the person who can then start to connect to people who are, to some of our former players who would use. This is where bringing the former players and the local ex-players back into the fold comes in for me. It's not about a team of Geordies managed by a Geordie running out at Wembley into a cup final, but the role that those players can play behind the scenes in installing that DNA. This is what it means to pull a black and white shirt on. And some of them also have coaching talent that is sitting wasted, and that needs to be tapped into and used. We've got the potential to bring the region together at that level. And who benefits from it? Well, the club as a whole benefits from it. And this is what I'm excited to see starting to build.
Yeah, it's exciting times. And I guess if anybody sees this man in a fish shop in Newcastle, Gateshead, Durham, South Shields, give us a call. We might know that we're a step closer to signing the man who can make our dreams happen. So,
well
okay,
done.
on to one of our first segments of the evening. The day I met, where you send in photographs of you meeting famous footballers or managers or staff from St James's Park, and plenty in the inbox this week. Thanks to JM for sending this one of a rather dapper Andy Cole. Not sure what the location is there. It looks like Glasgow potentially, but I'm not sure. It's got a hotel of some description, but thank you for sending that in. Whitby Mag, thank you for this one. Current keeper, of course. I think that's his son. I'm not sure whether we had that last week, but all the same, it's still a day I met. And Jamie Coxon, with an unexpected night, sat with his boyhood hero, Gaza, taking in the basketball. Jamie, thanks for that, mate. Much appreciated. Get them coming in. Send them to me on Twitter at Steve Ray. That is the day I met. Last hour or so to get your bids in for the Alwaleed Brighton away. Completed it, mate. T-shirt for the food bank. It's at the top of my Twitter account at Steve Wraith. Place a bid. All proceeds from the winning bid, of course, go to the food bank. And we're safe. Pleased to say that Alwaleed got back safe and sound at home after a fantastic trip over here. And he did want to say thank you for essentially the Geordie fans taking them to the heart, because he had an absolutely fantastic trip, and I'm sure he'll have a few words to say about that on a new show that we're starting tomorrow called The Views from the Middle East, which will feature Mitch, Stu Penman, and of course Alwaleed, and that replaces the Mick Lowe's show. And just want to pass on our best wishes to Mick. It wasn't for me to say what had happened. I was fully aware, of course, last Saturday when Mick couldn't come on air, that there'd been some kind of mishap. I actually got an email from Ian Dennis, another well-known reporter, to say that Mick wouldn't be able to do the show because he'd been taken into hospital, and sadly he had a blood clot and on the brain, of all places. So not great. Luckily he was still able to message me, Mick, but it's going to be a long haul. But the good thing is he's still with us. He's still here. But we wish him well. Get well soon, mate, and look forward to seeing you when you're back on your feet and you're back to 100%. But yeah, good stuff. So, as I say, from tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock on a Saturday, we will be doing Views from the Middle East, which will feature Stu, Mitch, and Alwaleed. Looking forward to that. And well done, Alwaleed, for getting stranded in Brighton and doing an away trip in style, which of course
you know what it is. I reckon in 10 days he's packed in what takes some people 2 years to do on away trips and things.
Well, he packed in everything in 10 days. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw him sitting directly behind Amanda. I mean, I know that I was approached to help get him a ticket for that game, and obviously we did our best. But to actually be sitting by Amanda and also to be meeting the new gaffer, wow, fantastic. So look, great trip. And that's what it's all about. Can I just tell everybody in Saudi watching, I do apologise in advance. We won't be able to organise exactly the same for every single one of you coming over. But we'll make sure you get the same warm welcome. Lads, I want to turn our attentions now to Malcolm Dix. And obviously last night and, the night before, I did, we did a tribute to Malcolm last night. And it was quite emotional, the tribute that we did. Gibbo, Supermac and John Waff, of course, came on. I also put up another video, which you can find with Sir John Hall and Malcolm Dix, which I know a lot of people have already enjoyed, which was filmed in Wynyard about 10 years ago, where they both chatted about, about the takeover that they took part in with the Magpie Group. But give us your views and your memories, because you spent a bit of time with him like I did, Steve Hasty.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm was an absolute gentleman. That's the first thing I would say. It's a word that gets bandied around, but anyone who met Malcolm just knew that they were talking to an absolute gentleman. He treated you with such respect. He just had this manner about him. He could warm a room, first of all, but he did it in such a dignified and in a way that just sort of, you felt as though he was only talking to you when you had a conversation. He was a lovely guy. He helped us immensely right in the early days when Mitch and I got involved with fan groups and things like that. When we left the trust, he was very disappointed to find out why we'd left and wondered what was going to happen next. And if you remember, Steve, he was one of the people who came to the fore and suggested that we really should be starting to communicate with the football club, or attempting to communicate with the football club. And as an honorary vice president of the football club, honorary life vice president of the football club, he saw it as his role to do everything he could to encourage that dialogue, encourage that conversation, and encourage people like yourself and myself, Mitch, and many, many others to stick with it and to get that dialogue going as much as we could, as best as we could. And yes, it was difficult at times, and Malcolm accepted that it was going to be difficult, but he encouraged us, and that was something that I'll always be thankful to him for, because it kept our spirits up. When obviously the club was going through the doldrums, and we were going through the doldrums ourselves, and the whole atmosphere was poisonous and nasty across many quartiles of the football and in the city, and the relationship that fans had with each other and so on. But Malcolm was a shining light. There's no question about that, and he kept us going. And then when we did, as we talked about in one of the shows that we had, Steve, about the work that we did with the gates, and if you remember Malcolm being there and laughing his head off when Sir John pointed us to where the gates were, and we went, and Malcolm's go, well, where are they? They're not there. And we go, and he's going, they're there, man. Can you not see them? And they were under bales and bales of hay that we were supposed to be able to see through. That was typical Sir John, because he knew it. Everybody else was supposed to know it. And it was just so comical. And it was so great to see the interaction between the two of them, and the mutual respect, but more so the respect that Sir John had for Malcolm. That was the thing, because Malcolm had been in that battle right from the very, very early days of the early to mid 70s with the board, when he fought to try and get on the board and was just getting knockback after knockback after knockback. And then obviously he set up the Supporters Association. He ran that supporters club with our good friend Steve Wilkinson. It's now the Tyneside Irish Centre. They took over that building, and they tried to do something for the fans again, to bring fans together. That was something that he always had dear to his heart. There should be no reason why we're divided. The fans, we all love the football club. We all wear black and white. We should all be behind the football club, and we should all be together in whatever the battle is. And he fought many, many battles. But obviously the one that will always be remembered for was the way that he and John Woff and the rest of the Magpie group brought Sir John in when he didn't want to be part of it, and convinced him. Peter Radcliffe, another absolutely pure gentleman of Newcastle United, along with John and Malcolm and Mr. Rooney, and they were great. Those guys they set the scene. They showed what can happen when you keep fighting, when you keep going. You don't step back. And this football club would not be the football club it is today. And I think it was said last night, this takeover would not have happened if that battle that took place by the Magpie group hadn't been won. And the reason it was won was because of the temerity and the fighting spirit of guys like Malcolm. And we should all be grateful for that. It'd be a sad miss. He was a lovely gentleman, as I say, and he didn't just get involved in Newcastle United. He did things through Sport Newcastle, and that had been going. And we talked about it on the show that we did on Wednesday night, where Neil's dad was able to explain his connection with Malcolm and on that. And this is what will happen over the next few weeks. You'll hear lots of stories, and lots of sports stars will come out and be thanking Malcolm for how he helped their career. and quite rightly so. Very disappointed, very sad to hear of his passing. 79 is no age these days. But he's there, he's up there, he'll be looking down, and let's hope we can have some success in the years to come, because Malcolm will be certainly the one who'll be going, I told you so, lads, I told you. You just had to have faith.
Great stuff. Mitch, share your views and your tribute to Malcolm.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Steve said, my dad talked about it on the Retro Show through the week about how he got to know Malcolm through when Malcolm was the chair of the Newcastle Sports Council. My dad was the chair of the North Tyneside Sports Council, and they worked together on a lot of projects, and the deep connection was always football and Newcastle United. Somebody who it wasn't unusual for a long period of time for me to come home and find him sitting up with tea in the lounge with my dad talking football, and encouraged. I'll never forget the personal message I got off him when we finally got the NUFC converted to NUST, and I was left sitting as interim chair. And that personal message to me will live long in my memory, and was the reason why I kept going. Malcolm was also the key for me and Steve when we developed some sort of working relationship with Derek Lambias, because Malcolm was the one keep saying, keep talking. And he was the one that maybe give us the little chink in Derek's armour that let her to get into his ear eventually. That he basically liked to be a pantomime villain. And if you look past the bluster, there's somebody there who you could work with if you said the right things and got him on board. And that was the measure of the man, was his desire to keep communication going and keep open dialogue going for everybody, not limited to just one section of the fan base or one group within the fan base, to be there as open and communicative for everybody, because it's everybody's club, it's the region's club. And the amount of stories of his personal generosity, his personal kindness, his thoughtfulness, and that drive, that passion, way beyond what you would think of as the terrace passion, will linger long after. His memory will be, for me, the man who turned Newcastle United into the vehicle that now has given us the platform to springboard to wherever we want to go. And he was key to that, and he was key to bringing the Magpie group together and holding them together at some times, because of that desire to make Newcastle United the very best that it can be for the region and for us. And I'll forever be grateful to him for that. And as I say, I've got some personal memories that will live long in my heart from him, and really nice guy as well.
Yeah. Not going to get any arguments from anybody on this platform with that. You'll be a big miss to me as well. John, good evening. Good to meet you earlier on this afternoon. NUFC Matters are on TikTok, whatever that is. Those old fogies don't know what that is. I thought that was a noise a clock made. But there we go. We're on TikTok, apparently, according to John. God forbid what's going to be on there. Just another platform to get trolled. Eamon McPartland says, it's brilliant to get home from work on a Friday and watch your show, lads. You've all put on a fantastic show. Thanks, lads. How are the lads? Very kind of you, Eamon. Nice to get messages like that. Always far more of those kind of messages than there is anything else. I've got to be perfectly honest. I guess now, with a manager in place, as you said, director of football, hopefully imminent, and new owners, we start to look ahead, to the future and to the transfer window. And Steve, we've been linked again with, many players. We'll probably have to start doing a count on how many players we've been linked with. But Eddie Howe's been in. He's going to have a good look at these players in the next couple of weeks. He'll know where he needs to strengthen. I think we all know where we need to strengthen. We've talked that to death on here. Let's go one further, and let's talk about next week's game a little bit earlier. About who do you think who do you think the surprises are going to be in this squad? Because there's been a few players who've been dismissed by the previous manager. Do you think anyone will come back in? Do you think we might see the return of a left back into a left back position? Do you think we'll see maybe two strikers up top, a return of a certain striker, and Dwight Gale maybe. So, who do you think's going to just predictions now? Because we've got another 7-8 days till the next game. But who do you think's going to be the surprise packages coming back in?
Well, I think the first surprise package is he'll play 4-4-2. I think that's the first one. He'll tighten up the midfield, he'll tighten up the defence, and he'll have an outlet balls for both areas up front. People that can hold the ball up and people who can move wide. I think that's the shape, and we've been screaming about it for weeks and weeks now. The square holes in round pegs that Mitch talks about. To me, the biggest problem was the formation, and you sacrifice one area for the sake of another. You sacrificed your midfield, and you stuck 2 hold midfielders, but you were sacrificing what was up front in reality because you already had 5 at the back anyway. And while you were protecting a middle 3 with 2 wide people who could always tuck in, depending on whether the ball was coming down the left or the right. I think that's where we've lost out. I think that we'll see more of a drive in midfield. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, and the one I think we'll see back in straight away, it'll be Joe Willock, because of the energy that he can bring. I think we'll see him possibly, because we know that he can score goals. I think we might see him in a more advanced position than the position he's been playing in. I think the conundrum is going to be what he will do with, let's say, Dubravka, who's not there at the moment because he's on international duty, and what he'll do with Almiron, because again, he's not there to see them because they're on international duty. Dubravka's a strange one because he's been injured for so long and hasn't played all season. And Almiron, because he is the square peg in the round hole that the majority of Newcastle fans can see, because none of us still, after all these months and months and months, actually could really pin down what his best position is. And I think that's been the problem for the lad himself. I think he's been played wide, he's doing running. And I suppose if we're talking about bleep tests, he's the one will probably be the highest on the bleep test if he was taking it. But unfortunately, bleep tests are one thing. Actually doing something with all that running is another thing. And for me, he's been running up blind alleys for months and months now. And he's not finishing, he's not creating, he's certainly not the finished product, but he cannot finish either. And I think that's the sort of thing that Eddie Howe's going to be looking at. And he's going to say, well, if all he can do is run, and all he can do is basically support other players, i.e. doing their work for them, covering for them, etc., then maybe I need to look elsewhere. So I think these are the sort of things that Eddie Howe's going to be looking at during the next week. I mean, the other question is, and I think he's probably hit the nail on the head himself, is what happens with Ryan Fraser. Because again, a player that has been completely underused, but a player that he, as a coach from his time at Bournemouth, knows an awful lot about. And it's interesting that Fraser chose not to go, much to Stuart Penman's annoyance, to away with the Scotland squad this week for their World Cup qualifying game. Decided that he was carrying an injury, but then by Wednesday was running all over the place and has upset the Scottish manager and the Scottish coaching team and probably the board in Scotland and probably some of the fans as well, because it's a good game.
That for me is a sign of a man who knows what Eddie Howe wants and demands.
Exactly. Yeah.
For me, Ryan Fraser's an interesting one. We talk about how the whole square peg round hole thing, but a lot of that comes from absolutely appalling squad management over the last couple of years. And Ryan Fraser is one of the ones. He's a winger. He's a wide midfield player, but he seems to be being played in either an 8 or a 10 role, and yet we seem to have been put into this back 5 arrangement. But we've got 4 players who can play as a wing back, but none of them are actually really wing backs. You've got full backs or wingers who are put into a more defensive role. You've got Murphy and Ritchie, or you've got Mankillo and Lewis. And the closest to a wing back in there is Mankillo, but he's really still just an old school right back. And so we've got that conundrum. We've got this thing where I don't know what Graham Jones was alluding at about Fernandes not getting a place on the bench. Why is he a waste of a place on the bench? At times he's been my best defender.
Yeah.
Yet he's not getting a look in a back three. Hayden's been asked to play at one stage, didn't he play 4 different positions in the same game?
Yeah.
I mean, bugger, how the hell can you get any consistency when you don't even really know what the manager wants you to do in terms of a role in the team, and haven't got a chance of cementing that role in the team because your role's changed 3 times during a 90-minute period in a match?
Yeah.
We'll have the quintessential, in the world of square pegs and round holes, the octagon, that is Joelinton, that we still need to work out what the hell we do with him. I still insist, much to my personal ridicule, there's a player in there somewhere. There simply has to be. And maybe Eddie Howe can work that conundrum out as well. And there's so many of these things in so many different positions. And you're out about Dubravka. I think people don't realise how serious Dubravka's foot injury was. And that there was at one point after one of the surgeries question marks over his career, let alone when he would be back. And so these things are all there to be solved, and they've not been solved, but they've just been allowed to fester while they train twice a week and put the balls and the cones out, like somebody rightly said in the chat, like an non-league team preparing for an FA Cup game at Anfield. There's a lot of things that Eddie Howe needs to work out quickly. Now, his familiarity with some of these players is useful, because I'm damn sure he knows what the ex-Bournemouth players are all about. And so I'm interested to see what he trots out in terms of his first team and what kind of roles he has, what formation he goes with. I know he likes a pressing game. I'm quite happy to see that, because I'd like to see more energy. But by God, their fitness is going to have to improve significantly if they genuinely are at the 60% mark that I've been told that they're at. I wish that didn't surprise us. I really wish that hadn't surprised us this week. And so I think in this period of time, he's got a lot of problems to solve, but that's what he's been brought in to do, and he sounded like he had a cohesive plan, and those are probably the kind of answers he's been giving them in the interviews.
Yeah, I think there's another aspect to it as well, Mitch, that you don't become a professional footballer playing in the top league in the world by being rubbish. As people have a tendency to shout when things aren't going wrong, when a team's not playing well. All of a sudden, oh, he's rubbish, he's crap, he's rubbish. Oh, he doesn't get a look in. These are pedigree players that we have.
Right.
Yes, we always talk about they're on big money, etc. But these are pedigree footballers, and often, like a pedigree horse, they need to be coaxed. They need to be shown what to do. But once they know what they're doing, it clicks into place because their experience, their knowledge of the game, and the knowledge and their skill and that everything about them, their ability. It's just blending that. And if Eddie Howe can blend this squad together, and he can come up with a formation that suits all 11 or suits all 25 or whatever you want to be, then you'll see possibly a different Newcastle United with this squad than the one that we've seen over the last 18 months to 2 years. Because you're right, there is a footballer in Joelinton, because you don't pay 40 million for someone otherwise. We've seen what Almiron was like when he was in America. We've seen the way that he could move the ball. We've seen what a shot he had, how he could score goals from all sorts of angles. We've seen him take free kicks and score them directly. I don't think I've seen him take a free kick for Newcastle yet, for whatever reason. Little things like that, when you're on the training pitch, will suddenly fall into place, especially with a coach like Eddie Howe and the backroom staff that he's bringing in with him. And at that point, the penny will drop, and then we might see something. And let's face it, we've got to get some points on the board. And you're looking, I'm sure we'll cover this shortly, you look at the fixtures that we've got coming up, and they're winnable games. There is a possibility. I mean, I would stick my neck on the line and say there's every chance over the last 4 games, the next 4 games, that you could come away with 12 points. There's no reason why you can't when you look.
Yeah, as I say, winning becomes a habit just as much as losing becomes a habit.
Yes, exactly.
But Steve makes a very good point there. When you're dealing with elite group athletes, and I know this from my connections in sports medicine, you talk to guys. One of the best phrases I was ever heard was from a lad who was one of the technical directors at Bayern Munich with Pep Guardiola. And in a speech he gave out here in Dubai at a conference I was at, he basically was talking about the marginal gains you're dealing with elite group athletes. And how that less than 1% can make such a difference. So as he rightly said, and I use this quote quite a lot, if you make Usain Bolt 1,000 to the second quicker, he breaks a world record. If you make me 1,000 to the second quicker, I'm still going to miss the bus if I'm running for it. And that's the difference. And so what you're looking to get out of this group of players, if you can improve those players by half of 1%. The difference in performance is tangible, absolutely tangible. And so he started with the basics. How fit are you? Let's get a basic measure of old school fitness. Bleep test, bang. Yeah, right. Okay, half of you are now thrown up at the side of the pitch. I can say how fit you're not. And there's no, you don't need to measure the bleep test to say how far that go. If that entire squad had been going for an hour on the bleep test and then we're all chucking up the side of the pitch, then great, it is. But I bet it wasn't like that. And so these are the marginal gains we're looking for, and we need to find them all over the pitch and in as many physical ways as possible. And that's one of the things that Howe's obviously setting out to do.
Yeah, and good luck to him with that. One or two players will, as you say, will be found out, I'm sure. And yeah, major improvement needed. He's the man to do it. Okay, on to Tweet of the Week. Tweet of the Week, where we tend to scour the internet for pictures, tweets, you name it, and there's a fair few. And it was mentioned earlier in the chat. I just wanted to highlight this. There is Steve Bruce at the T20 yesterday, having a fine old time spending some of his money.
I was getting sent all sorts of pictures from the ground. Sat in front of him was a Macam mate of mine who was saying behind him there was two lads in Villa shirts pulling faces and not very happy. And he sent me these pictures of Bruce at the cricket with these Villa lads behind him, knowing that he's a Macam, and he just said, he's effed us all over.
Classic, absolute classic. It's not our problem anymore. The scoreboard, talking about Al Walid's trip to Newcastle, he said he's had the time of his life. He'll never forget it. If Carlsberg did holidays. Certainly a good way to describe Al Walid's trip, that's for certain. I did like this. Somebody was blocked by Gary Barlow on Twitter, and he said, whatever I said, whatever I did, I didn't mean it.
Classic.
It's weird that when you often find that you've been blocked by somebody and you've got no reason why, or never understood why. We've got our club back. If Raffle goes, we go. A little bit of a comedy one here. He goes, I once watched the opposition put a centre back in goal and decided to float a free kick into the edge of the box.
Oh, yes. Well done.
Yes, that's
we all shouted that, didn't we?
Yeah, this could have gone in Troll of the Week, but I'll give it a buy. This is from Milburn 1. Steve's a good lad, although he tells fictional stories like he met Caprio, enabled the takeover, beat 100 at karate and biker, etc. I'm not Chuck Norris, lad. Come on, dear me out. This was from Jed, which I thought was brilliant. So now we know it only takes 8 days of dedication to become a fully fledged member of the NUFC family. Took me a good few years until I got left behind on an away day. Missed bus, flight, train. To complete the journey, I fell asleep on the metro and ended up back at St. James's Park. Oh, God, brilliant. This one, not a great copy, but this was from somebody I can't see, but look, you get the picture. Cans, and this was just the various announcement that Keith Downey has done on Sky. Cans 1, Cans 2, and then Cans 3. That was on the appointment, of course, of Eddie Howe. I did like this one as well from Ian Syntaxera. I'll leave this image here. The damage inflicted on this club by these two will take a bit of time to repair, and it will be 100%. And that really was just in a reaction to some of the, the negativity that, still remains on social media. Some people just don't seem to be happy unless they twist on 21, unfortunately. And, that's life in general. But, unfortunately, it still goes on social media. Best advice, if you don't like it, I guess, just block it. This one did the rounds at the weekend as well. I picked this one up from NUFC Can. I think Steve sent us this. John Rovers, Mansfield fan here. Not only did we embarrass you on the pitch, but you were outsung from the first minute to the last as well. Your fans were the scruffiest I've ever seen too. At least your neighbours are a big club with pots of cash and going places. You lot are skint in a mediocre third-tier club and going absolutely nowhere. Oh dear. Mackham's winning friends and influencing people. Those of you who are on Netflix will appreciate this one. Squid Game. Alan McKenzie tweeted this week, no place to hide, Toonami. And as Eddie Howe towering above Gray's monument with John Joe Shelby running in fear of his life. Probably the first time he's run anywhere in recent times. Again, another one about Al Walid from Mickey Barlow just said, football fan, completed it, mate. Which, of course, we know Al Walid certainly did. And Stephen put this one out. He says, John Joe showing Eddie what he can do in his first training session. Nice yellow strip as well. Mobile midfielder. Of course, for those of you who are like me and need glasses, that isn't John Joe Shelby. It is, in fact, a bit of training equipment. Coming down to the top three, Andy McClay. Breaking news. Newcastle introduced formal coaching for the first time in years.
Well done, Andy.
Andy, looking forward to seeing you next week at the Christmas do, mate. Thanks for that. And this one from Ketch.
Yeah.
Still thinking about that Shelby free kick. God, yes, we all were. And tweet of the week from Stephen Baker's. Awkward moment today when my 7-year-old son asked me what a dick was. Fortunately for me, a bloke in a Sunderland shirt was passing at the same time. Great stuff. We do like a little bit of a laugh at the Mackhams. Keep them coming in and we'll keep looking. Tweet of the week. Now, some of the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that I've got a new cup, courtesy of Q-Tech. Cult Leader. And on the front, NUFC Matters. So we were talking about this the other week, and John from Q-Tech, as you know, comes up with a lot of good ideas. He's come up with a membership scheme for NUFC Matters. If you want to show a little bit of support for the guys and the girls at the show and essentially just become a member. John is going to set it up, and just to show you what you're going to get as a member, we're going to launch this at the Christmas party next week. John's done a little doggy bag there. NUFC Matters scarf, one mug. He's just put 2 mugs on just to show you the back and the front. You get an NUFC Matters pen and an official NUFC Matters bag to stick it all in. Details about this membership scheme will be on the website, nufcmatters.com. And it's just a chance really to help us try and improve things and move things on. NUFC Matters is clearly here to stay. But if you want to do that, the details will be on the website. The first 50 memberships were going to be available at the Christmas do. John will be at the Christmas do, so go and see John. He'll have the goodie bags and that with him, so go and see him. You also get a membership card to show that you are a member. What else do you get for that? You get 10% off anything on the website. You also get 10% off any of the events that we put on. So thanks to John. It's another innovation by John. And it also means that we will keep all of our content on our channel free. You don't have to pay for it, which is one of the bonuses, I guess, of our channel. We've never charged you for it. And, we'll continue to do the same. But if you want to become an official member, there's a few perks. And as I say, 10% off our events and all except the food bank ones, of course. But thanks to John at Q-Tech for putting that idea forward and putting it into action. So those of you who want to buy that, get yourself along to the Christmas do. As you know as well, there will always be a prize involved. And what John has also offered is a monthly members draw, which will include 2 match tickets. So each month you will get a chance to win 2 tickets for the match at St James's Park if you are a member. But you will also continue supplying 2 tickets for the monthly draw that we do for you who watch the show at home. So last week's clue was that.
Right.
And this week's clue is this. So write your answer down to that. 2 more to go. And then once you've got all 4 answers to the 4 pictures, you will have a question. And be the first person in the chat in 2 weeks' time to give us the answer to that question. So, yeah, good luck with that. And don't forget the membership package launches next week. The T-shirt, got 20 minutes to go to get your bids in for that. I will be putting up a new T-shirt tonight, which I will announce at 7 o'clock. And as always, got our usual favourites. We've got Toon Tipster coming up. He'll be looking ahead to the games, I guess the international games coming up at the weekend. And we will also be doing Tweet of the Week and Troll of the Week. Got to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Spider VPN. For all your internet security, Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of your search list. They are the boys to trust to protect your passwords, your photographs, and everything else on there. Skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com and website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors as well, 01913897245. And of course to John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. Thanks also to Jab Signature. Their website's jabsignature.co.uk for making all of our flyers. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, click subscribe by hitting the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share your other social media, and drop into the comments box to pose a question or to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. And iTunes and Spotify and Podbean is where you will find us on podcast. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show. Last chance really to get your tickets for the Christmas do, which is a week today, November the 19th, 7 o'clock at the Irish Centre. Superman and Gibbo giving a talk in. Junior Turner performing his song. £12 a ticket for that, with all proceeds going to the food bank. Should be a cracking night. Don't miss out. Over 150 tickets now gone for that event. Going to be a cracking night. And I think there's at least 12 people from the show going to be there. So going to be a good little get together for everybody as well. Also, an evening with Peter Beardsley the following Friday, again at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are £15. And newcastlelegends.com, click shop for your tickets for that event. Also, an evening with Supermark and myself, Thursday, December the 9th, in aid of the food bank at Bobix, which is in Jesmond, used to be the Punch Bowl. Tickets for that from bobix.com. All proceeds, again, going to the food bank. If you want to make a donation to the food bank, you can 365 days of the year at this website, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. And you can also go to the same website to enter the raffle. Tickets are £1 each to go into the draw for the signed, custom-made Peter Beardsley trainers. They've been made by I Am The Renovation, and that will be drawn on the 26th of November at the Peter Beardsley event. Peter will also sign those trainers for you. Don't forget as well, Groupon and Voucher, you can get onto there for your tickets for an afternoon with Peter Beardsley, which is Sunday the 30th of January at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. Make a cracking gift, and well worth coming along to that event as well. And don't forget, my book Every Boy's Dream is selling well at the back page in Newcastle and the Metro Centre, and you can also order that online at Amazon. So get yourself onto there. Okay, before we get to the last half hour of the show, let's take a few of your comments. Graham Nichol just said he's ashamed to say that even though he's been a Toon fan since 1986, he didn't know much about Malcolm Dix until recently. He sounds like he was a great person. He certainly was. Sean says, did the lads feel that Jones remaining maybe wasn't in the new manager's training staff's plans? Great question. Mitch, we'll come to you on that one.
That's a great question. I'm not convinced he necessarily was, but he carries so much reputation in the game. I'm quite sure Eddie Howe can find Jones's various skills as a coach useful in some way, shape, or form. and so it's win-win. If Howe's happy to work with him, there's a good reason for that, and therefore everybody's going to benefit from that. It's clear Jones isn't a manager. But he does have this role and a little bit of continuity for the playing staff, because he obviously seemed to have a good relationship with the players. How many of those pictures do you see where the players are talking to Jones and Bruce was stood there with his hands in his pockets looking like he was looking for his lost golf ball?
Yep.
And so there's something there, a bond of some description, that's probably very, very usable for the manager. So I can see, in some respects, he's got nothing to lose by keeping them on and using that.
Steve, what about you? I mean, I don't think it'll be awkward in the slightest, but, we do know that Graham Jones was given assurances that his position at the club, no matter what it was going to be, was still assured.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people are forgetting that Graham Jones does know some of the other coaches that have come in along with Eddie Howe as well. So, it's not as though that he's sort of like the new kid on the block or the sort of, the round hole, the round peg in the slotting into the square hole of a group of new coaches. He's, they're well aware of them. They've worked together. They're friends. All of that type of thing. So I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be refreshing for him, because he's going to be perhaps being able to, bearing in mind that he came into a little group that was, I suppose, some people might claim to be a clique because they've been together for an awful long time. Now is he in the same position, or is it slightly different, because he's already the man in the hot seat at Newcastle anyway in terms of coaching. He knows the players and this type of thing, and he knows the structure. So I think it's going to be, I think for him it's going to be new. I think it's going to be refreshing. It could bolster him, and it's as much how he takes it as the rest. He's going to have to blend in. He's going to have to work, possibly in a slightly different way. But coaches like to be on the pitch. Coaches like to be out there on the grass, as the phrase that Peter Beardsley always uses. There's nothing better as a coach than being out there on the grass with the ball and working with players day in, day out. And I think that's what Graham Jones is going to continue to do, and he's going to be hopefully doing it. And he'll be learning from the rest of them in the same way as they'll be learning from him. So I think it could work very well. And it's also, I was going to say, it kind of puts him in the shop window as well, because, if Newcastle are successful and he's one of 3 or 4, as often happens, he's spotted by other clubs and other managers, and they think, yeah, I want part of that. I want some of that, because everything evolves and everything changes. So let's just hope that the whole lot can work together well, and that we see that blend mature into a really, really good coaching setup.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of comments coming in about Shelby. I kind of keep up. Question, lads, do you have hot chili sauces, Steve, on your mince, mushy peas, curry sauce, etc.? Nah, that's disgusting, mate. Having a hot sauce on mince pie, mushy peas, curry sauce, gravy, and salt and vinegar. However, mate, there's not enough room for bloody hot chili sauce on that. The answer is yes. I'm very specific, though. I do like the extra hot Nando's sauce. I could have that on anything, I'm pretty sure. I don't, but I could. But that's my favourite. Are you one for hot chili sauces, Neil?
It can be in the right place at the right time. I mean, being out here, you've got access to a whole world of cuisine and different sauces you might never have come across before. And you get some very authentic, particularly you go down Jira, there's a fantastic Sri Lankan place. But by God, you've got to put your bog roll in the freezer before you go there.
I bearing that in mind, yeah. Steve Hasty, are you a hot sauce man?
Not really, no. I mean, I don't mind it. I prefer the sweet chili sauces to the very hot ones, I must admit. And I'm if before he asks, yes, it's got to be brown sauce on sausage and no sauce on bacon. I heard you talking about it earlier in the week, Steve. I just find that you can't have sauce on a bacon sandwich, but you can certainly have brown sauce on a sausage sandwich.
It's got to be nice bacon, you see. This is the thing. It's got to be nice bacon. If it's not nice bacon, unfortunately, you have to put some sauce on to cover it up. Cheap bacon's no good. John, I thought that was Joan Collins. Actually, I was getting all excited. Loving it, watching a show about the tune where all talk is positive. John, you know, it's lovely presenting a show where all talk is positive. Believe you me.
It's lovely talking positively as well.
Somebody earlier put a comment on saying that Shelby's put in his resignation at the club, deeming unfair working practice. Gary Milligan says they reckon Shelby was the best in the bleep test. He can swear like a trooper. Craig says, do you think Eddie Howe will choose a new captain? If so, who do you think and who would you have? Good question again. Steve, I personally think he'll leave it as it is because he won't want to go into a dressing room and upset things. I think in due course, maybe he's the start of next season, he would probably change it. But I think everybody knows that Richie's the captain-elect, as in, you know, on the pitch. I don't think Richie will get the captaincy either. I don't think Richie will be deemed suitable for next season. I think he'll be peddled in the summer. But I think for the relegation fight that we've got at the moment, I think he'll leave it as it is. Unless Lascelles is out.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless he decides not to play Lascelles anyway, I think that Lascelles will stay as club captain. I think you're absolutely right. He'll not want to rock the boat. He'll not want to cause. He's got enough to contend with in terms of getting them to play the way he wants to play without then throwing. But you know, at the end of the day, he's his own man, and that's only our opinion. He could shock us all. You know, who would he make captain? I'm looking around at that squad. I don't like strikers being captains. I'm thinking of Harry Kane at the moment, and in terms of both England, he's not the captain of Tottenham, but he's the captain of England, and I cannot understand that. I always think a captain is best coming from a central defence or as a fullback, if you like, so a Stuart Pearce who can drive you forward. We don't have anyone like that. And I'm talking about Pearce in his Nottingham Forest days, not in his Newcastle days necessarily. Although he still kicked anything that was above 2 inches off the ground when he was at Newcastle as well. Sometimes that was because he was slightly slower than he had been at Nottingham Forest, and he's probably the first to admit it. But no, I always think that the defender, it's the best position for captain because you can see what's going on in front of him. Unless you've got somebody who's really, really top-notch, a really, really top-notch midfielder who can see everything. And again, we don't have one of those either. And we are quite a young squad when it comes to that. So, yeah, I think Lascelles will remain as captain as long as he's fit.
Congratulations to Scotland, by the way. They're through to the playoff. Well done to John Carver and his Blue and White Army. Looking forward to seeing how that progresses. Mitch, new captain, do you think? Or do you think he'll stick for the moment?
I think Steve's got it spot on. I don't see any point in upsetting the dressing room at this point in time. And the players seem to like Lascelles as captain, whether he's playing or not, you know. So I think, I don't think that's one of the more important changes we need to make. Because if he gets the formation right and the team right, he's got potentially voices all over the pitch. And that's what you need. You just don't need a single captain. You need voices all over the place. And if that core group is tight together, doesn't matter really who's got the armband on.
No, definitely not. Okay, we're going to draw a close to the food bank T-shirt. So the Al Walid bus T-shirt basically has been won by George Hayes, our mate in the USA. He has bid £100. Thank you, George, once again for supporting the food bank from afar. He is the winner of the Brighton away T-shirt. As always, he doesn't want the T-shirt. So that goes to the next person as long as they appear, which is Keith Patterson. Keith Patterson bid £50 on the T-shirt. So £150 made off that T-shirt. A big thank you to both those guys. And George has already paid the money. I will notify Keith Patterson. Or Steve, you can get in touch with him, mate. But I'll stick to it out later.
No, Keith will have probably already paid, rather like George has done already, because I got a message from George with the money dropped in just about 2 minutes ago. But yeah, I'll speak to Keith. No problem with that.
And hopefully, Steve, if you can, it would be nice once we know what final amount we made off the Christmas due. If we could maybe get a final total next weekend of what we've made over the period of lockdown. I know it's a bit of a task for you, but if you could maybe tot it all up and we can make some kind of announcement on the show next Friday, because I'll shut the tickets off probably on Thursday for the event. Obviously, we'll have some fundraising going on the night, but it would be nice to go into that and make an announcement next week. And a lot of people saying with the show, will the show be on next week? Will it be live? Will it be a pre-record? We've all agreed we're going to do 3:30 until 5:30 next Friday. So we will be live, but it'll be 3:30 till 5:30 next Friday. So Toon Tipster will be on his way over. We'll get him to do a video, hopefully, with his Brentford predictions. We will get Toon Stato to do his usual video as well. So it'll be Friday. It'll be 3:30 till 5:30. And we are going to film the Christmas do. So if you live abroad, you can't be with us. We will film it so you get a feeling of what it was like. And we will be sticking it up on the channel as well. The new food bank t-shirt then is this one, Newcastle legend Malcolm Dix. That is going to be our food bank t-shirt for this week. I'll stick that at the top of my Twitter this evening at Steve Wraith, and you can start the bidding. Again, it's a one-off t-shirt produced by qtechshop.co.uk, so please get the bids in. And just to announce as well, we have got these on our NUFCmatters.com website, again courtesy of QTech. Howie the Lads t-shirts and Eddie Howe selling quite well, so get yourself onto there, NUFCmatters.com. Get your Eddie Howe t-shirts now. Great stuff. Okay, going to bring in Toon Tipster. I hope he's ready. I've just seen him doing his hair. Has he got the Peaky Blinders curl? Has he got the Baywatch surf hairstyle? Let's have a look. Well, have you had a trim?
Just nice to have hair on this show.
You're right. No, you're right. I'm jealous. That's the only
I think it looks smart,
old
mate.
Man goes on about
nice.
A man's hair because he wishes he had it. But there you go.
I'm in court tomorrow, so I thought I'd better brush it.
Classic. Good evening, mate. What you got for
How
us?
are you?
Good. Very good, mate.
Good. What do you think of my Movember effort? You like it? I've been growing it since February.
Yeah.
Are you going to be asking for Lebensraum in Sunderland soon?
I'm just checking. I thought it was a mark on the camera.
Well, here we are. We're on another international break, which I don't mind, to be fair. I mean, we've not had one for about a fortnight, have we? So, it's about time. I suppose one of the benefits of us being absolutely rubbish is that at least the boys get to stay on Tyneside to try and get their heads around this alien concept that's been referred to as training every day. Sounds interesting. In a week that's seen us add more coaches to Newcastle than Stagecoach have, it's been great to see the lads looking so happy at work. And if the state of Carl Darlow was anything to go by, there's hope for us four yet. Howe was busting a gut, whilst John Joe looked more lost than a Saudi Arabian in Brighton. Amanda told us that she'd already spent £38 million. Bloody dear, them window cleaners, Steve. They must be charging the same hourly rate as Dubai dentists. Anyway, she said she was looking forward to them Sports Direct signs coming down. Last time I was that desperate to see something removed from St. James's Park, I wrote a letter to get rid of them chicken stacks out of the 1892. They're absolutely cack. And yes, that is the only letter that's ever mattered in the whole history of our football club. Before we get to my favourite time of the month, pretending I'm interested in international football for the sake of a cheap laugh, I wondered if it was worth just sharing the latest relegation odds for Newcastle now that Mr. Howe is here. Unfortunately, it hasn't made much difference. We're still third favourites to go down at even money behind Watford and Norwich that you can already write off. At least we're not quite odds on yet. And more positively, if you want to win some money on us, we're 25-1 to win our next 3 games, 16-1 to finish in the top half, and 33-1 to win the FA Cup. You get your money spent, Mitch. Anyway, back to the real world. England face Albania in a massive game at Wembley tonight. And yes, the odds are absolutely ridiculous as per usual. The only value I can find is if you bet on England to score over 3.5 goals in the match, or England to win 4-0, 9-1. Northern Ireland and Wales are also well fancied, and with Scotland already winning, it could be a good weekend for the home nations. In terms of the food bank, we've still got 65 quid in the pot, thanks to the Brighton keeper's last-minute antics on Callum Wilson last week. But with Eddie Howe knowing exactly how to get a tune out of him, I'm really hoping this is going to rise in the coming weeks. For tonight, I'm refusing to back Harry Maguire anymore, Steve. He's absolutely worse than Marcelino. So I'm going 7-1 on the in-form Ben Chilwell. And I've noticed he's starting on the outside left. So fingers crossed on that one. In terms of the tune tickle, well, we were back to great form last week because it was absolutely nowhere. And for the sake of this weekend, I'm going to suggest that every game tonight and all of the qualifiers tomorrow will have over 1.5 goals in them. And that's 8-1. I'm off now to get ready for the 2019 NUFC Matters Christmas party. Tickets still available. Q-Tip has booked me a hotel, which is actually closer to Brazil than it is to the Irish Centre. So if I set off now, hopefully I'll be there for the meat draw with a bit of luck. And please, please, please make sure you save me a seat next to Jed Hasty, the good-looking one. Anyway, get well soon, Mick Laws. Rest in peace, Mr. Dix. Gamble safely, everybody. And thank you, gentlemen.
Great stuff as always from Tune Tipster. And as he says, please bet safely. And as you know, this part of the show, we always have one of your favourite segments, it has to be said. And as always, you haven't let us down. And before we get into this, I do want to say that if that particular article that I've seen is true from the Daily Mail, I'm always very reticent to jump on things just in case it's been manufactured by somebody, especially on social media. If I'd seen it in the paper direct, then I would have gone hammer and tongs like everybody else is on social media. But if that is true, then there needs to be some kind of serious investigation into who allowed that to go into the newspaper today.
Absolutely.
Amanda Staveley in a comparison. I've got to be perfectly honest, because we do tune look-alike on here. I have been sent that by numerous people over the last 4 weeks, and I've chosen not to put that up on screen for obvious reasons. It's very, very rude. It's embarrassing, and it is disgusting that you would even consider doing that. And to dress it up with a fake person writing in with a comment is bullshit. That's straight out of bloody Viz comic, for God's sakes. It is,
and that's got no business being in a national newspaper at all. And it's part of a consented campaign that we have got to suffer as fans, that we just take all this shite on the chin because we are who we are and we're owned by who we are owned by. And it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah. And we're all nodding our heads and all in agreement with that, Mitch. So, you put that across perfectly well. But yeah, I did want to highlight that. As you know, we get sent a lot of these. Some I use, some I don't. The difference is that me, Steve A, Steve Joe, Mitch, whoever else, Keith Patterson when he was on, Ian Mearns, anyone who's actually on the show, we've all got a sense of humour. We can all laugh at ourselves. I think when it starts going down that particular avenue, it's bang out of order.
Absolutely.
We'll continue to do
well said.
but again, we will maintain a sense of dignity and pride in what we do and make sure that we don't upset anybody. So, yes, here we go. Eddie Howe, compared to the bloke from Westlife. I've seen a few of these. Thanks, JP, for that one. And again, I don't think Eddie Howe would be too upset about being compared to that guy. This one was sent in by Andrew Bygate. Now, he says, Mitch is on here. He's at the back in the centre. So, of course, I had to zoom in. And there he is.
That's what I'm going for, that look.
That is definitely, that's you in front, maybe you in front. But yeah, Andrew, that was pretty good. It was worth zooming in for me. It definitely does look like Mitch.
It's worth finding a picture when I had me bloody beard.
It is, yeah. We'll dig one.
Stick it together. I would dig it out.
Wayne Bennett sent this one. He says, look alike for Friday. Jason Tyndall and Fraser Digby of Swindon Town.
Good.
Could almost be the same person, that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why on earth you were thinking of Fraser Digby, Wayne? I really don't know. It's not a name that rolls off the tongue, is it? It's not somebody who you would think, oh yeah, he looks like Fraser Digby, is it? It's bizarre. You'll have to message us on Twitter, Wayne, and tell us why you were thinking of him. I can't remember who this was for, but another
Norman Stanley Fletcher.
Norman Stanley Fletcher. Steve Hasty is Paul Norton.
See, mate. Well, he's wearing a hat for a start. What the hell is that all about?
I can see it. If I squint, I can see it.
What do you mean you can see it?
If I squint, I can see it. So there we go. Yes, Toon, you also said it was Nicky from Westlife. So Toon had exactly the same thing. There is a similarity there. Apart from the hair, there's a similarity. There's a bit of a look. I can see where you're coming from. This one from Rocky Toon, Trossard and Russell Howard.
Yeah, just a slightly different hair colour, but you can see a little bit of that. Yeah,
there's a little bit in it. Definitely a little bit in that one. And this one, Gally on Insta, look alike for you. Hope it's another sign of things to come. Steve Bruce and Eddie Howe. Howie. I can't honestly. I try to give the people support who send these in, but I cannot see that one. I cannot see it.
It's just the shape of the haircut, isn't it? That's all.
Well, if Eddie Howe can take anything from this, it's that we gave 2 positive ones to 1 negative one, I guess. This one, I can't remember who this was. Oh yeah, United. He goes, look alikey, Hasty and Charles Hutton. He's remembered for his circulation of the density of Earth from Neville McIntyre's measurements collected during the Shishalian experiment. People love it when I can't read things out. But Steve, I can see that.
Oh, I thought you would. I thought you would.
If he had longer hair, that is. Can you do the face? Can you go like that? That could be a statue of Steve Hasty. That could be a statue.
Steve,
get it up at St James's Park next to the gigs. What's that?
What was that experiment you've just said?
All right, yeah. Dublin Magpie, thank you. It's, yeah, I can see that as well. That's quite good. Joe Linton and some bloke from Chelsea.
Yeah.
James.
That's it, James. Do you know him well? Like, is that his first name? Steve Bennett sent us Fernando Torres and Johnny Lawrence from Karate Kid.
No, that is good. Cool.
Yeah, see that, like.
Yeah. Good one, that Steve. Thank you, my old pal. This one from Wayne Bennett, very fetching there. He says Steve Hasty in blue suits you, my friend.
I think I replied to him on Twitter.
I got it in the neck with this one of Zebra Fucking. See what you did there. Luca Likey, beard shave. Now, me having a shave really sent Twitter into a proper heat wave of abuse for me on the old face. But Popeye, I could live with that. I do like spinach. I do have that in Portofino's when I'm down there. Albert was back this week with his take on what a lookalike thing is. No one puts Wraithy in the corner. That's my face superimposed on some girl in a red dress.
It's Dirty Dancing, mate.
Thank you for that, Albert. This one from Andrew just says, Defo we're looking like Steve Wraith. Don't even have to say who. Me. Is it me?
Eddie Howe, isn't it?
Eddie Howe, man.
All right, okay. I just thought, because again, the guy's clean shaven. So Eddie Howe, got you, Andrew. Okay, well, good job the lads are here to keep us right. This one could have won because it's very look-alike-y. Ian Hull sent this one in. Toon Tipster and Mr. Potato Head.
Do that with your ears, yeah.
He says, sorry I've taken so long for this, but I'm actually running out of material, says Ian. Now that's pretty good.
There you go.
Hold on, do that again. Yeah, and the tash. And the tash. Very good. Okay, we've got that. This one from Sam Chipperfield. Says, I know it's not a lookalike, Steve, but it's Steve Wraith opening his own shop. Baldy.
Well done.
Cheers, Sam. This one from Paul Gleghorn. He says, not on Twitter, but I love the podcast on YouTube. One for Friday's Amigos show. Look alike, Simon Jordan and your old pal Claire Bolden.
Poor
Tell you
Claire
what.
Bolden, that's all I can say.
Poor Claire Bolden.
Stick some glasses on her and it's not far off. This one again, Daddy Ben Salman basically says, look alike, Steve Wraith as Margaret Thatcher versus Kenny Everett as Cupid Stunt. Again, like
this is
my
gone into surreal now.
My head superimposed doesn't really count. But
you're not a Tory, are you, Steve?
This one from Des Legs. He just said that me and Al Walid and Peter Beardsley look like last of the summer wine. This one took a bit of artistic effort from Magpies. He says, I thought that was Steve Wraith photobombing you for a split second. And he drew a beard on the security guy at the back.
Right.
It definitely was not me. This one was from Alan saying that Amanda. No, this is a good one about Amanda Staveley as opposed to the other one. Fenwick's window. He spotted Amanda in the window as part of the display, which I thought was pretty good. And that got quite a bit of coverage at the start of the week as the big countdown to the window kid. But yeah, that's acceptable, that one. This one isn't acceptable, but this is the winner. Thank you, Rachel. Before the takeover and after the takeover, and I know you're in the chat, so well done, Rachel. You are this week's winner of Toon Lookalike. Let's get back to a few things in the chat. Plenty coming up, and lots of people very happy about the lookalikes this week. Gary's just asking a question about Spider VPN. What's he say? Hi there. Spider VPN you use. I've looked at it before, and it comes up in $signs. Am I on the right website? Just put .co.uk in instead of .com, and it should come up. Fine. Lots of people are saying that they're very sad to hear about Nick Lowe's problems. Well, I'm sure he will be watching the show, and I'm sure that he will see that. Lee Major, can you please put your bid in on Twitter for the T-shirt, mate, if you can. If you're not on Twitter, then I will accept that. But ideally put it on Twitter just so we can keep it all above board. Gord says, great show, lads. Always smiling faces tonight. Can we all just spare a thought for bifferandnyla.com? Trying to keep the transfer rumour page up to date in December. I do like that. Yeah, good luck to them as well.
RIP keyboards.
Yep. Brian Johnson. Not sure if it's the Brian Johnson, but he says, okay, lads, very emotional, thinking of a lovely man who cared for his club and the community, just like yourselves. Deepest condolences to Malcolm's family from all who knew what he did for us. Brian, wonderful sentiments, mate. And yeah, it's been a tough week because, you know, for me, a big mentor to me, somebody who means a lot to us and always will do. And like we discussed last night, those little notes that he used to produce at every meeting when I used to sit in Blake's on Grey Street, and we used to have our little coffees, and our 1 hour meeting used to stretch to 2, usually at my expense, but I didn't mind. But you know what? The guy was an absolute legend and did so much for the football club, but also did so much for the community. And for me personally, he was a mentor, and he'll be sadly missed. We knew that his time was coming, though. He hadn't been well for a couple of years now. But, you know, good luck to, you know, his family. I'll be there for his family as much as they need us. And we hope that he gets the send-off he deserves. And I'm sure Newcastle United will do something at the Brentford game as well. So make sure that you're all out your seats and clapping for Malcolm if that is the case. Tom Dixon asks a question. So let's go with this for the last 15 minutes. Stephen Mitch, what are your thoughts on the Premier League club that they could invoke anyone but Newcastle's transfer policy due to their anger at the Saudi takeover? This was something which went under the radar a little bit, Steve, about, you know, about potentially, you know, people objecting to doing business with Newcastle. It just seems like the papers have come up and the media have come up with another way of writing the same story, because, you know, it's only a week ago that they were saying, you know, that this, you know, 19 clubs weren't going to deal with Newcastle. And I think my answer was, well, agents tend to run football. That's never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, this is just a rehash of the same old story, isn't it? To get clicks, Steve.
Yeah, of course it is. And you're absolutely spot on, Steve. agents and players decide where players are going to go. And the agent has all the power. We've seen it time and time and time again over the last God knows how many years. Players that are unsettled by the press, and then the agent steps in and the agent has manipulated the situation and the player ends up moving. Whether it's a top-class player or whether it's someone who's simply looking for a move because he's fallen out with a manager. It happens time and time and time again. And that means that a club can shout as much as it likes, saying it'll not deal with Newcastle United, but if one of their players is being offered big money and the agent is going to get a big payoff for his client signing for Newcastle United, then it'll happen. They're not going to be able to stand in his way because it's simply not in their best interests to do so. Whether or not they have talked about it or not, we'll never know. You know what? Keith made such maneuvering on the whole aspect of collective lobbying, and we know where this is heading, because if clubs have done what you mentioned at the start of that conversation, Steve, taking out the fact that they're not wanting to deal with Newcastle United and they're going to put obstacles in the path regarding sponsorship, etc., and then it'll end up in court. Simple as that. Because they've actually already admitted it. They're already trying to put rules in that stifle somebody against somebody else, and it's in their best interests to do so. So, if they want a battle, they'll get one. But I think the most important thing for football is that all of this gets settled. It gets settled amicably and sensibly, in the right place at the right time. And that the rest of the Premier League just move forward. They're already fighting among themselves. They're already scraping around in their own boardroom and panicking about their managers, as we've already spoken about. They need to look at themselves, keep their own houses in order. Don't worry about what Newcastle United are doing, because we've got our own plans. And there's no guarantees in football. You've got to remember that. There's no guarantee that you're going to win. Just because you've got loads of money doesn't mean you're going to win the league or you're going to win the cup or anything like that. It might give you a slight advantage. And for Newcastle United, we've never had any advantages whatsoever in all these years. It's 60 odd years since we won a domestic trophy, for goodness sake. So, paper talk, but that's what the papers are going to do. Mitch, you mentioned it earlier. We're going to be hounded. We're going to be hounded forevermore. We are the bad guys now.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Let's face it, it's ridiculous. And I mean, it goes along with the question that was asked at the Eddie Howe press conference. Like Steve says, we're going to be hounded forevermore. Eddie Howe's asked about human rights. You know what I mean? And I love his answer. I'm just here because of the football.
And all of us are. And that's not to say we ignore the things around it. In fact, I think, did you know what I found very interesting was when the club tweeted about their support for the player who came out in Australia, there were replies onto that tweet from Saudi that weren't palatable.
Yeah.
And what I was pleased to see was our fans turning around saying, hey, this isn't us. And this isn't what we do.
Yeah.
And if you're on board with us, get rid of that. With regards to the Premier League clubs, if they really want to sit and say, right, we're not going to deal with them, I'd just say to them, good luck with that. Really good luck with that. If you've got a player with a release clause, you've got no choice. You've got no choice. And the agents will make it work. And the agents will make it work for their clients, whether they've got a release clause or not. And I tell you the thing that the COVID period has taught me and Steve about football clubs. Cash is king. And they have an absolute inability to work together for the greater good because self-interest always kicks in. Look at the League One clubs, how they all fell out when they said, right, we're going to end the season on points per game. And some wanted it and some didn't. And the ones who were in the playoff positions as a result of points per game go, yes, end the season now, stop it now, this is the way we should do it. And everybody else is like, well, hang on a minute, we can't do that. And the thought they'd had a meeting with all the clubs and agreed away from an official forum that this is how we're going to do it. And at the very last minute, people voted the opposite direction. Why? Because self-interest always kicks in first. And we're seeing now, cash is short in the game, still now. The remedies that they've put in really have only just kicked the can down the road 18 months. And it's not something now that we can worry about because we don't need to. And so good luck with that if you don't want to deal with it, because somebody will break and somebody will crack. And then once one goes, yeah, there's a follow-up. It's a nothing story. It's more noise to whip up this furore against Newcastle United because of who owns us and because the ownership structure, they're having to go at every single way they possibly can, that the owners, the people involved in the consortium, at the fan base. What next? All you're going to do is make us stand stronger together and circle the wagons and say, right, okay, bring it on. Good luck with that. Because nothing says anti-competitive behaviour like a little bit of anti-competitive behaviour. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. What do you think then, Joe? I mean, it's been an interesting week, to say the least, but this story keeps cropping up. Any negativity will always get a fair spread because, you know, our fans react.
I think you're right, Steve. You know, the lads are spot on in what they say. I think for me, when I read it, I was thinking, is the British press still under the impression that in January, so in what, 8 weeks' time or whatever, we're going to be going for Foden and De Bruyne and, Ronaldo and Salah? Where's the threat? So, you know, we're not doing business with Newcastle. We're not going to be signing Harry Kane. You know, we might be signing one of Tottenham's reserves. He's not good enough to get in their side anyway. So for me, I looked at it from a footballing perspective, let alone my second thought was exactly as the lads have said. What's this got to do with the football clubs? The agent will say that if Newcastle want to spend £300,000 a week on Harry Kane, that's what they'll do. It's got nothing to do with Tottenham Hotspur. So yeah, I think if we're realistically looking at the market, you know, we've been linked with players like Conor Cody, for example. We've been linked with players like James Tarkowski. So for me, with the greatest of respect to Burnley and Wolverhampton Wanderers, they're the type of lads that would be that we should be targeting, but would be absolutely delighted to join, the revolution, if you like. So I think being realistic in terms of our targets, the clubs aren't going to have any say in it. It's a nonsense. It's a non-story. Okay. And yet again, like the story about Amanda, like the story about the transfers, the takeover, the sponsorships, you name it, it's absolute. Let's just have a pop at Newcastle United. And I just hope that we get the first sign, second sign, third, fourth, and fifth. And we can all just stick two fingers up at everybody, and in a season or two's time, we'll forget about Saudi Arabia and we'll forget about human rights and we'll get on with the fact that Newcastle United have just won the FA Cup fairly and squarely. So it's shite. Don't buy it.
I love it. Fantastic. Well said. And just about Eddie Howe, Joe, how happy are you to see him take the hot seat?
I've been a fan of him for a while, Steve, and I said this. If you think back to if you're one of the three people who watched my dream team, one of the things that I talked about was that 4-4-2 and those wingers and those strikers. And one of the things that I've always been really, really impressed with, although it soured right towards the end, was the way that Bournemouth played football. They had wingers, Ryan Fraser being one of them. They had centre forwards, Callum Wilson being one of them. They were solid enough. They were comfortably avoiding relegation season after season. I actually appreciate the fact that he's had a break and he looks like he's been refreshed. I'd love a year or two off work to be able to say, right, let's recalculate, let's recharge the batteries. To see what he was doing on the training pitch, I mean, obviously it's all science and I don't exactly know what they were doing, but he was there, he was opening his mouth, he was challenging people, and he was actually showing them how to do it. And I think, I'm not here to bash Steve Bruce. I've done enough of that over the past 2 years or whatever. But a noticeable difference in a week. So let's get us playing football Let's get us scoring some goals. Let's get us crossing the halfway line. Let's get a midfield that doesn't stand at the edge of the 18-yard box because, the defence are on the 6-yard line. Let's get rid of Jamal Lascelles and let's go for it. So I'm over the moon, Steve, and I think it's the right appointment. Should we be bringing one of what is classed as the world's elite in at this moment in time, or do we need someone who's hungry, someone who's passionate, and someone who's buying into what we're trying to do? And I get the impression that if it goes wrong, this lad ain't going to walk out on us. I can't say the same if we'd have took Mourinho on. So I'm 100% behind him. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you think Eddie Howe would keep Lascelles as captain, Joe, or do you think he's going to go for somebody new?
Steve, I don't rate the lad. I used to. Funnily enough, I was a fan of his, but I don't rate the lad. He's not good enough. And people say he's the best we've got. That's a sorry state. A lot of people shouting for Matt Ritchie. Like we said earlier, will Matt Ritchie even make the team? Although Howe knows what he's getting. I've always been a massive fan of a skipper being stuck right in the middle of the park. When I look at that controversially, for effort alone, although again, he's got his critics, I like what Isaac Hayden does because at least he puts his foot in, at least he gets round the park. I think one of the things we do need to think about is, have we got any captains? So, where are the captains? Who is vocal? Because that team that I watch on a Saturday, Matt Ritchie aside, nobody's opening the mouth. And I think that's one of the first things that he's got to do. So if I was to put my money on it, if I was to play Willock and Hayden in the middle, I'd give Hayden the captain's armband and say, get into him, get your mouth open and get him rattled.
Yeah, okay. Julie, I can see you getting ready to say your goodbyes. So I better bring on the cat. Troll of the week, as always, I look for something a bit unique. This was quite good. Fraser Wilson said, breaking news, deluded man who got a hiding in Rise of the Foot Soldier. Talk shite to stay relevant. Love that one. Love that one. Thank you, mate. Absolute classic, that I did like this as well. Did see this on the end. There was a few of these knocking around. I think it was I'm not sure it was it the Magpie channel or one of the other? It's one of the other shows anyway. Put this up when the new owners informed me that the city has a Greg's open at 3 a.m. and a pint is less than £2 in the Beehive. It was an easy decision, said Eddie Howe. Never. Fantastic. Don't forget as well, we do have a little bit of true crime content. If you don't like it, scroll and move on. This story though is quite remarkable, and it comes up tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Paul Bogie from Edinburgh was a heroin addict and up to no good, but he turned his life around and became a Royal Scots Guard. He's got a book out called Heroin Hero. It's well worth a read. I did an hour's podcast with him, which goes out tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. So please give that a watch if you're interested. And as I say, if you're not interested in the true crime content, then scroll and move on. We do have football content though, and we are back with a new show. NUFC Matters, views from the Middle East, some familiar faces there. Al Walid, Stu Penman and Mitch join me at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning to look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And don't forget as well, I will be with Supermac on the 20th of November at the Dog and Parrot to do our usual pre-match talking. As always, it is free to come in and attend. So hopefully, if we don't see you at the Christmas do, then we will see you there. And let's just drop into the chat. I know there's a couple of other people commenting. Kirk says, you know what it is? I reckon there'll be players in our squad who will win trophies with Newcastle. Consider that 92-93, just 5 new players transformed the squad from Championship to Premier League contenders. I tell you what, you've got a point. Marty says, great show as always, lads. Great show, says Keith as well. And Nicholas says, see you next week, Vinny. Any pay on the door? Warlass is 50-50. For you, Nicholas, yes, 100%. And as for the question you put earlier about pizzas, Liam Kennedy had the Inferno and Al Walid had a Margarita at Portofino's. So I hope that answers your question. I forgot about that, but I did remember at the last. Lads, as always, that 2 hours flew over. Great to see you. And don't forget, any regular viewers of the Three Amigos, We will be back 3:30 till 5:30 next Friday live. Mitch, see you in the morning bright and early. You too. Have a good weekend. Take care, lads.
See you guys.
Take care, everyone.